The Judicial Service Commission is briefing the media. Let's take you live to that.
Advocate Baloyi's control, but thank you for the opportunity to address you. We're just going to talk about the meeting that happened on Monday. You will recall that during the sessions that happened in February, we indicated to the public and to the media that we were going to have a workshop, and this was a decision that had happened during the session last year. And so we're very happy that following the appointment of the Chief Justice, then that process happened on Monday. The meeting on Monday was a very fruitful discussion of the JSC, and you would have seen a media statement to that effect. We had indicated in February that following questions as to whether the Judicial Services Commission has a criteria over and above the criteria as stated in the Constitution, and we did indicate that there was a document that was adopted by the Judicial Services Commission in 2010, and that was in fact an update, the update of a document that had previously been adopted by the Judicial Services Commission in 1998. The Commission, having deliberated on that document, reaffirmed its commitment to the criteria in the 2010 criteria document, as we call it, and that is the criteria that is being implemented or applied in the interviews even now, and will continue to be so. However, what the JSC did agree to do is that the Rules Committee will look at that document together with some of the submissions that have subsequently been received. That we will look at, the Rules Committee will look at that, and given the passage of time as well since 2010, we'll look at that to see if we need to be supplementing, expanding or amending any part of the criteria in the 2010 document. So as things stand currently, the 2010 criteria is what we are applying. There was another concern raised at the time, I think in Feb, that the public wasn't aware where to get the document. And what we have since done is to request the Secretariat to ensure that that document actually is on the website of the Judicial Services Commission. And so that has since been done, and in the media statement we would have provided you with a link to that effect. So I just thought to give you that background, and that was the decisions that were made by the Judicial Services Commission. The other issue, I think the Chief Justice raised it in the opening yesterday as to the agreement that was made by all commissioners to deal with candidates with respect and taking into account, to be courteous and taking into account their dignity, as we did that, and that was the commitment made by all commissioners. I don't know if Commissioner Baloyi would like to add anything, but that's what we wanted to say to you.
Nothing at this stage for me.
The last issue relating to the proceedings of today, we just wanted to inform you, you would have seen on the schedule that we were supposed to have interviewed a candidate for the position of the Land Claims Court in the Gauteng Division. The candidate has since withdrawn, and that's why we didn't have that interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to say, we are not at this point going to be engaging on the reasons. As you know, we have to write to the President, and once we've done that, all the reasons we have will be there. But just to confirm, all decisions of the Judicial Services Commission go onto a vote. So that would have happened. So once we have submitted to the President and made the decision, we have to do that first before we make that into a public conversation. Thank you.
But did you find that he was unappointable? You must have.
No, I don't. I don't think any decision to that effect came about. But as I'm saying to you, Karen, thank you. Sorry for your question. Is that we will once we make the decision to the President, we will write to the President. We will do so. I think we have to respect that. We make these decisions and they are to the President, and we can't then, the President, have to find that decision via the media of what our reasons and all of that is. So I think we have to accept.
Unfortunately, a perception, given what happened with you recommending Mandisa Maya as the next Constitutional Court Chief Justice, that you, as the JSC, are trying to unconstitutionally force the President's hand. And this latest series of events, given David Unterholz's history as a legal practitioner, as a judge, with what happened, may well feed into that perception.
Thank you, Karen. I think we can't talk about perceptions in broad terms. What we sought to do following the meeting on Monday is to deal with the criteria as it is, and we are now informing you that we're doing the right thing and we are dealing with it in that way. And you can't then saying there is a perception and then let's perpetuate that perception and do something wrong, which is to give you the reasons that we need to take to the President, and we're trying to do things right now. And so I think I can't take it any further than that unless you want to add something, Commissioner.
Can I just add? Sorry. Can I just add to that, Karen, that firstly, the question you asked was, did this go to a vote? I think one of your colleagues asked the question, yes. And Sepe said that, yes, decisions of the JSC do go to a vote. So I think when you speak of a perception that the JSC may be trying to achieve something, you have to keep in mind that there is a voting. There's deliberations, and there's how decisions are made by vote. So any perception, if you're going to answer any allegations of perceptions, one has to break it down and understand what does that mean. In this case, the decision was made by vote. That's the answer you got. And the reasons for the decision will be communicated to the President. And I think the correct thing that we should accept is that we couldn't be sharing reasons with the media now and with the public before they're submitted to the President.
My question is, why was it vote necessary? Because you have shortlisted candidates who have gone already through a process to determine that they are suitable for an interview process. The Constitution requires you you have 2 vacancies, and then, you have 5 people. So in all likelihood, unless you can find something manifestly unsuitable with the candidate, extraordinarily, powerful evidence, you should have actually just put that shortlist forward in its entirety. So now, because as according to both of you, as you spoke yesterday, we have a circumstance where we're going to have to rerun this interview shortly so that you can find a candidate in circumstances where, you could have put 5 of those names. So I'm asking, why did you have a vote? You weren't required to exclude any names from that list. There wasn't a surplus of candidates. So why was the vote necessary? What were you voting about?
Can I say, a rerun is a different conversation altogether, has nothing to do with what we are speaking to you about now. So perhaps we can leave that aside. The question about why was it necessary to vote, I think you have to accept that at this point, the best you're going to get, for reasons that Sepe has explained, the best that you're going to get is that there were deliberations, decision was made by vote, the submission to the President and the report will explain how the decision was arrived at, and that's what it is. And at that point, then the reasons, or the answer to your question, will then become public information at the appropriate time. But I think at this point, you're not going to get better than what we are saying to you now.
Do you accept that the President might reject the reasons that you give?
I don't think we can assume And I don't think it's helpful to get into a
Does he have a
discussion.
legal ability to do
Can I say that I don't think it's helpful at this stage to get into a discussion about what he could or what he could not do. That's complete speculation. And I think the best is let's accept. You probably are not getting the kind of answer that you want quite clearly. But I think let's accept that a submission will be made to the President. It's his decision eventually. It's his prerogative how he chooses to deal with submissions that have been made to the President. And I don't think the JSC can do much more than that.
But do you as the JSC trust the President to make the right choice? Because you seem, with the Chief Justice and with this, to constantly be trying to force his hand.
Is that a fair question, though?
Well, in the Maya context, absolutely. And unfortunately in this one as well. Unless we don't know, you haven't given us any reasons.
Yes,
for
Karen,
why you
because
would
because the
exclude.
reasons will be given to the President. I don't think you can take it further than that. The reasons, unless you are challenging what Tsepe said, started off with, unless you're challenging us saying to you, reasons have to be given to the President first.
Yeah.
He cannot hear of the reasons from the public or in the media. Unless you're challenging that, then there's no further benefit to this question being repeated over and over. I think do accept that the JSC has an obligation. We have an obligation to give the reasons to the President before we share them with the public, and that's what will happen in this case.
So
Thank you.
guys, thank you. Can we move? Just can I ask, we have time constraints because we have to go back into the interview process. We can have this debate, but we're not going to end, and I think we need to give others an opportunity.
Okay, can we take 3 more questions again?
So we heard the Chief Justice this morning saying that there was complaints against one of the shortlisted candidates, was Judge Rogers. Would that impact his nomination? Would that?
Thank you so much. Just so we clarify, that is a JCC process, not a JSC process. And so we need to be clear because the processes of the JSC complaints cannot involve other members of the broader JSC, which would include politicians. So that process is still within the JCC, and the JCC will deal with that itself. But just to confirm that there was no objection in respect of Justice Rogers on this matter. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question about criteria, coming back to kind of the stuff that you said, that you have talked about. Firstly, it seems obvious from what you've said so far that the JSC has got reasons that it will supply to the President, so Cape Bar Council, you guys are secure on that, right, in terms of the judgment and the reasons. So, but I just wanted to check with the criteria. Firstly, it seems that there's a different air to the JSC in the past few days. Obviously coming from your workshop on Monday, and I'm just wondering what lessons or responses in behavior, especially when it comes to dignity and courtesy to candidates, that you guys have kind of learned from previous Judicial Service Commission sittings, perhaps the last 2, that has now affected how has influenced how you behave, how the rules that you've set up here. And secondly, the other thing on criteria, I think it's interesting because there's a lot of. If one looks at, if one were to compare, for example, the Rogers interview and the Unterhalter interview, there's one instance that comes up in both those interviews around human error, or so-called human error. In the Rogers interview, it points to the retraction of a constitutional court judgment, which is because it lacked one party's papers and like the evidence and arguments, etc. And in the other one, it dealt with a dismissal of a leave to appeal application. In terms of Unterhalter, were they kind of considered and discussed in one breath? That's what I'm asking in terms of kind of like human error by judges, criteria, etc.
Thank you so much. Just on the, firstly, we cannot engage on the deliberations of the JSC on that. So unfortunately, with regard to the last question, I will not be able to give you the answer.
So, for clarity, would human error be something that one, as a judge, is that a criteria that one considers, I suppose, is what I'm asking? Errors?
Yeah.
Mistakes?
Yeah. Look, I think in the criteria, if you look at it, and I think Ceci is going to deal with any questions regarding the actual criteria would be considered. I mean, errors that happen that relate to errors of law that requires appeals and all of that. Those are things that happen all the time, and I think it's accepted that is so. But there could be others that you deal with differently. But that's at a broader level. I'm not going to engage on the actual facts of this matter. Just so just to be clear, we will not discuss issues of deliberation on the actual facts. But just on the first question relating to behavior, I think it's safe to just say that we are all recommitting to behaving in a manner befitting an institution like the Judicial Services Commission, and I think that's what the Chief Justice sought to do yesterday in the morning when he addressed the commissioners, the public, and the media. Thank you.
Thanks. On the question of acting and criteria for appointments, there have been a number of questions that have been asked of candidates as to whether they see their acting experience as being sufficient. And I think candidates have actually sort of tried to express something like, well, I've got this number of weeks. That seems to me enough. Acting isn't one of the criteria in the 2010 criteria, as I understand it. So is that something that you are going to be considering for this round, or would you want to defer that to the rules
committee
going forward?
Thanks, Alison. I think the issue on the criteria is even the supplementary criteria, to some extent, some of those issues could be broad and some examples could go into it. So technical experience, for example, could be about acting, for example, or it could be the number of years you have practiced. So I think all of those are included, and I don't think it's excluded from the 2010 criteria necessarily. But what we're hoping the Rules Committee could do is either expand more on what each of those components could do without obviously fettering the discretion of the JSC in its implementation of the criteria, either of the Constitution or the supplementary part. Thank you.
Okay, one last question.
Yes. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask whether in Monday's meeting, was there any sort of reflection on the February interviews? Because Commissioner Chair, I think it's not just our perception, it's the President's perception, and I know because he said it to me at the JSC that it's matter of that. So was there some sort of reflection, and how do we...
I don't remember. So you mean like a review of the...
personality, if you will.
No, I don't think so. I don't remember.
No, we didn't do that, but it's not because it was not considered. I think what happened is on Monday we had quite a tight timetable, which was for a workshop that was conceived previously. And my recollection is that towards the end of the workshop, in fact, the issue was raised that we need to have in place a system where we review previous performance of the JSC. Where we've conducted interviews. So it's not just about what happened in February, but to put in place a mechanism, basically, where we can check our performance over time and where do we want to improve.
So, for example, we will have one theoretically after this
It should. And perhaps one should just accept that the response to the February, not just the response, but the interviews themselves and the response that have brought the issue into focus. Let's say when previously the JSC got away without sitting down and reviewing or dedicating time to review itself, how it has been performing, this brought it into sharp focus that it's necessary to do that, to have a mechanism in place.
Question. I think you just mentioned that at the time, or once you handed the report to the President, the reason will become public. Is that?
No, to the extent, sorry, what I meant is that becomes the President's document. And if he chooses to share it, it will be entirely up to him. But we submit a report to the President.
Thank you,
Yes, thank you.
How long before you do that? Do you have any time frames for you intend to hand the report?
Karen, I suspect it will be urgent. It's being worked on right now as we speak. We started last night on it. So I think the best you can get is any time, honestly, between now and when it is delivered. But it is being treated as a matter of urgency.
But it's also done by the Chief Justice, and I think we just need to allow time for it, I think. Thank you.
You have previously faced legal challenges. Do you think